So think of this as like a group profile reading, and no, as I think all you guys do, I don't do profile readings, right? So the way that I'm going to do this is going to be very different than I think the way that many other people would do this. There's not going to be a lot of me telling you things. There's going to be a lot of us mutually exploring things and digging into things, and a lot of hopefully other people chiming in and sharing their contemplations and their breakthroughs and their pivotal moments and their gene keys. Because if I don't have a gene key, it's very difficult for me to speak to it, because not because it's not alive in me, right? It absolutely is. It's important to know that we have all 64 inside of us, but more so because I haven't done the same depth of exploration and contemplation around those gene keys as I have with my own. And even if I had, my understanding of that gene key is not what you need to have a breakthrough. What you need is your understanding of that gene key. And so that's where we're going to try and get with a few brave souls today. So, all that said, let's open it up.
Since our conversation, what you helped me do when you and I spoke individually, back in September or October, it's been a minute now. But when we did that, um, you helped me clarify my purpose, clarify where I'm going. And so I was able to put out a huge prayer, and here I am.
So the couple things there, and then Ryan, I see you. Will come up to you next, brother. Um, One of the greatest spiritual teachers, probably, well, possibly the greatest, but certainly one of the greatest spiritual teachers is committing to walking your Dharma, period. If you can commit to asking the question that Val brought up every single day, how can I be of the greatest service to the whole? And what that means is, the subtext of that question is, how can I let go of putting myself at the center of the universe? How can I let go of every action that I take being an action that gets me closer to where I want to go? And I think one of the best ways to continue to develop and ask that question is to show up in service, right? Whether that's a business or whether that's showing up somewhere in community, but it's just a commitment to follow your Dharma. Ryan, over to you, brother. What you got?
Yeah, you kind of touched on it a little bit just in that last statement. I know this has kind of been a little bit of your current and some of what you've walked through recently, but just in the whole narrative of vocation change and doing something that's in alignment, but also recognizing that resources are needed in order to fund life and family and
Mhm.
everything.
Mhm.
Just like general encouragement, how would you recommend navigating that with Gene Keys? And is there a certain area that you would consider focusing on? I know that obviously there's a vocation,
Yep.
but like, how do you, in your experience, how would you recommend navigating that whole dance, especially when it's a season of coming out of alignment with something and aligning to who you're knowing yourself to be now?
Yes, dude, beautiful question and perfect spot because I'm in the middle of it right now. And I think you probably, some of you, or perhaps you, Ryan, I put out a video, I think last week about this very thing. It's like something, the title is something around like a brutally honest conversation around money or something like that. So just background for me, I'll start there so that you guys kind of have a understanding. How far back do I need to go here? So I had a business that in 2020 did $1 million, right? It was not a small business. I mean, it was a small business, but it wasn't like there wasn't nothing happening there. Um, and then in 2023, after a whole lot of stuff happening, I decided to walk away from that business. And I had a little bit of a nest egg from it still. And that's how I basically funded my life for 2024. Towards the tail end of 2024, I made a commitment that this is what I was going to be doing. And when I made that commitment, I mean, I cannot describe to you how crazy it was, the things that started to happen. I mean, I had like 10 people decide to work with me inside of 6 weeks. And I made like just under 50 grand in that 6 week period of time. So I was like, holy shit. I left this thing. Money is a big driver for me. I have the 30-second gene key in my life's work. It's like a deep, deep, deep piece of work for me. It's been a big part of what I've been doing throughout this transition. Then I had a couple people give me giant gifts, and it brought up the amount of money that I made was close to $100,000 inside of 6 months. Then since like January, I've made like nothing. Like all of a sudden, just fountain off, gone. And this is part of what you guys are feeling. And part of why I'm kind of blowing in the wind is like, what's being asked of me here? I'm trying to figure that out entirely. And well, also balancing like showing up as myself in that process. And so this is why I made the video, Ryan, that you hopefully saw and I'm going to speak into now, where like, okay, I had a bunch of cash. I'm out of runway. Like I went to buy something off Amazon a couple days ago and it got declined because I didn't have money in my checking account. So where I've landed though, and hopefully you guys can sense this and feel this, is I'm not in this state of panic that I would have been in the past. And I am still ridiculously committed to knowing that this is the way. For whatever reason, I just know this is the way. And I don't know that it's going to get better before it gets worse. It doesn't matter. I still know this is the right way. And that comes, Ryan, I think ultimately you nailed it in asking your question by connecting deeply to your vocation. Right? By knowing that I am here for something. There is like this deep inner drive and mission that I have. And I am not willing to let that go so that I can make sure that I'm okay and safe in this world. Instead, I believe that I will be okay and safe in this world regardless of what I do because I have faith. And so then I get to just continue to play and continue to kind of almost like prod the universe and just like it's like you guys ever see the movie I think it's actually, I'm sure a lot of people have seen this. If it's Truman Show, I'm sure a lot of people have seen it. There's another Jim Carrey movie called Yes Man. It's from one of these two, either Yes Man or Truman Show, where he's just like, I think it's Truman Show, where he's just like arms up to God, like, give me what you got, right? Give me your best. And it's not from a place of disbelief. It's not from a place of conflict. Like, that's not the posture. It's a place of like, I'm willing to do this. And so that's one place. And then the other place that I would recommend, Ryan, is the entirety of your activation sequence. Because your activation sequence at its core is about the last pathway of the activation sequence is core stability. And so it's about contacting this inner stability, which comes from knowing, not just believing, knowing that there is this higher force, this organizing principle that wants what's best Where it gets tricky and where it can sometimes be hard to swallow as a human is that it doesn't necessarily want what's best for any one individual. It wants what's best for the collective, for the whole. And so part of being in service means sometimes I'm going to get the short end of the stick. I'm going to hold my desires. I'm going to hold what it is I'm here to manifest in the world. And I have full commitment and belief that I'm going to get there. And, you know, sometimes we got to go through some hard times to get there because you need to learn some skills and you need to learn some lessons. And so those are the places that I would point you.
Cool. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, brother. Sorry that was such a long-winded answer. I don't know. That touched a place in me for some reason.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome, brother. I'm looking at the comments. New to the keys, so I don't really know what experiences connect with which keys. I've only been working with them for a few months. So, Sonia, I think what you're meaning is like, what does each of the spheres represent? Is that accurate?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm also new to Zoom. So kind of new
Got
to
it.
everything. So I'm trying to figure out how to connect and go on, and I'm new.
You're doing great. I would
Thank
never know
you.
in a million years.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Fake it till you make it. Yeah, so when you know you were the girl Christine had just written that, oh, that's really resonating with her 25th key, and I was like, oh, I don't know what resonates with any key. I just know all my experiences, um and my shadows. I could certainly point out now some of my shadows that I'm so in love with. Um and I'm noticing I can totally notice what experience goes with what shadow.
Hmm.
That's not hard. But to what you've been speaking about, because it's I just resonated really well with what you were talking about with the faith. So one of my life lessons, so I'm just new to the keys, but I've had some, like everybody else, some life lessons. I guess that's what has us here.
Hmm.
And so one of my, I think, incarnation inscriptions to be here is faith. So I
Hmm.
can really resonate with that one. And I have had some direct experiences. And so with faith, um, a long story short, one of the things was my father was a massive alcoholic, and one of my prayers, not that I didn't believe in God, but one of my prayers was um, to have a real relationship with my father. I was always envious of these girls who had these relationships with their fathers, and I didn't have one. And very long story short, my father's health and everything situation just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And to the point where I would just be like, there's nobody listening. You guys are deaf. Like I just gave it everything I had to say. And it's like a test. Um, the more I prayed, the worse the situations got. And the more I didn't believe that anybody was there, but I had nothing else. The
Hmm.
ground had been ripped out from underneath me. I had gone through dark night of the soul, suicidal attempts, all that. So when you say, you had that, and then now there's nothing coming, but you know in your heart that's the way to go. I'm like, oh yeah, that's the way it works.
It is.
It gets worse and worse and worse till the point where you're like, you're really questioning if they're deaf, if there's anybody even out there listening. And then one day out of nowhere, because I didn't even believe there was a God. I had nothing else and nobody else to talk to, that I became like, I thought what's the difference between me and a schizophrenic, other than I'm doing this inside of my house? They get caught speaking to nobody outside of their house. And so they're put in an asylum where I'm in my house, so nobody could see me doing that. Um, and then one day I was driving my dad, I dropped him out in front of his house. And as I watched him, I parked, and he was like shivering. And I looked at him, I said, "Isn't my father beautiful?" And all of a sudden I had this direct communication with God just came flowing through me. And um, I, I just kept expanding and expanding and expanding. And I had never believed in anything. And I just, it's crazy. It's like, we just know. Like I didn't, automatically, whatever was inside me knew that this was God. And, and the whole experience, um, what when oh so all of a sudden like I became so expanded. I had this thought, it was love not of this world, and then this thought comes into my head, oh my God, my body's going to explode. And so it started to dissipate and dissipate.
Mhm.
And then I came back, and I would tell this story, and I thought for a while, oh, God is so loving that even when we're afraid, it doesn't want to scare us, so it just leaves us alone. And then years later, I realized, no, we're walking terrifications saying that we want to join. And when we are in the experience of being joined, we're so terrified of losing our identity that we cut it off. And we're always saying, oh, yeah, I want to join, I want to be with God. But you don't. You don't want to be, you want to be an individual. Oh my God, my body, me, Sonia, my individuation is going to cease to exist.
Mhm.
And so I cut it, not realizing I cut it.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So I don't even know why I'm going on with this experience, but about faith. Um, I don't know where I'm going anymore with this and having this
It's an
conversation.
important experience. What you're
Oh, and the
describing.
knowing, because you once said, and I've been watching some of your videos, and you were saying also about faith, and then believing, and there's a real distinction between believing and knowing. Is now I don't have to believe anymore. Now I know
Mhm.
there's a God, and
Mhm.
that's clear. And I know that the universe listens and hears every single thing. And the experiences I had after that is they know every single thought, every single word, every single like a movie, every single event is completely recorded, and that was shown, like some things were shown. Like yeah, so the knowing came.
Yeah.
I'll stop now because I don't know what else to say. I'm just
You
saying.
know, thank you. First of all, thank you for sharing that experience. I also just want to share that my dad was also an addict, and I deeply, deeply craved a relationship that unfortunately I never got. So I'm there with you and resonate deeply with
Oh,
what you
so
say there.
thank you for saying that. So that tells that I want to say what happened with that in that moment. Thank you, is my relationship shifted with my father in that moment from one of so I was given a gift, a miracle. I was
Mhm.
given a miracle. My relationship with my father shifted from one of duty. So I was a very dutiful daughter, taking care of an alcoholic father and calling him like every third day, maybe because it's been 3 days since I've spoken to him. I should check in with him. To one of being so in love with my dad. He's my greatest love. He's passed now, but I was given such a gift. I got to experience unconditional love. I have gene key 25, so I can tell you now that's the one of the, so I have that key. I can say that I got to experience unconditional love for one person on the planet. So I know how that feels and what that's like. Um, and while he was here, so I had that relationship with my father for a short period of time, and that was the gift. But it was my prayer and my prayer of wanting to have this relationship ongoing so much. And the universe, it was like I was tested to see if I would crawl for it. And I did. And then out of nowhere, I didn't even know a direct experience with God was possible. I didn't believe in nothing. I didn't go to church. That was not my realm. And that happened. So, yeah, unconditional love, that was the gift.
Yeah. Yeah. So first, let's just I just want to take a pause for a sec and just everybody take a couple breaths and just feel into that energy and emotion that was just present and just let it in. Water to wine is cool to think about, but this is a miracle. So, this direct connection to God, I believe, is a requirement in order to get to where Ryan was asking to go. I do not think you can get there without a direct experience of God. If you don't like that word, the universe, right? Whatever word you want to put there is totally fine with me. But this beneficent, loving being, which I believe you don't need to externalize, it's part of you. So when I say being, I don't necessarily mean this outside being, although I do believe that there is that component too, right? As without, so within. And the way that I believe is one of the most predictable ways to encourage yourself to have one of those experiences is a consistent meditation practice.
Mhm.
So if you are not consistently meditating and you have not had one of these experiences and you long for one, that's your action step. Because when you feel what Sonia just described, you will not be the same after as you were before. It is a moment where there's a total and complete shift in your worldview and how you see life. And also, that feeling, like what Sonia just described, that's the city. Like when you see the cities, that feeling, that's what we're talking about. Is this merging, this unity before the I'm terrified, I need to shut this down happens, right? Which is also something that I still, that happens to me semi regularly. I would say maybe once every couple of months. I have a meditation that gets so deep that I just get so terrified and I pull myself back because exactly like Sonia said, I'm fearful that I'm going to a place where I no longer exist.
Mhm.
And that is a scary, scary place to be if you see yourself as separate from everything else. And that's the work that we're here to do. And I believe that upon our death, this is what happens, right? This really intense merging. And if you pull away, you come back here.
Mm.
If you are able to stay with that, we graduate from earth and go on to whatever is next. And there's no linearity here, so all that goes out the window, but you guys know what I mean. Um, Another thing that I just want to touch on is the Akashic Record or the Book of Life. If you're reading the Bible, it's referenced as the Book of Life. If you're in the Eastern traditions, it's the Akashic Record. And this is what Sonia is talking about as recording everything energetically that is happening. And notice I said energetically that is happening. So it doesn't even need to be in the outer world, meaning every thought that is running through your mind is written down in this place. It is recorded for perpetuity. And when you realize that, your thoughts start to clean up pretty dang quickly.
Mm.
So that is a real place that some people have access to. So if you've ever listened to a podcast called the Telepathy Tapes, first of all, if you haven't, go listen to them because they are mind blowing. Second of all, I believe that's what, so this is a podcast about non-speaking autistic individuals. And they go to this place called the Hill, and they can all go there, like all across the country at least. I assume it's the world, but for sure the country. They can all go there. They can all talk to one another. They have relationships. They know each other's names. They know what's happening in their lives, and they have supernatural abilities there. So, like for example, there's a podcast where they talk about like, okay, so these kids are walking around speaking Aramaic. Like they can't speak, but they can type in Aramaic, where nobody has, like, they didn't even think they could speak English. Meanwhile, they're speaking like Hebrew, Aramaic, English, Russian, like they speak like 10 languages. And one of the experience that one of the kids described was like, you know, this is happening in some other space, but he envisioned putting his hand on top of a book, and just like Neo in the Matrix, he knew everything in that book immediately. Like when Neo just like, no, I know Kung Fu, right? Like that moment in the Matrix. So the Akashic record is an important thing, and I have a sense it's a part of my life in some way, shape, or form. I've not been able to do anything with it at this point, but there's something in me that thinks that there's a part of that. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing that, for being brave. That was very powerful and impactful. Thank you. Um, and then Jan, I'm coming over to you. Last thing, very quickly, Sonia, just to kind of give you a reference for the spheres and like where they pertain. I'm going to give you the first four, which are from the activation sequence, just like a very quick Reader's Digest version. Your life's work pertains to your life as it is what you're meant to do. So bringing yourself out into the world, and also what you're meant to do through your own internal journey during this incarnation. Then your evolution is like your proverbial rock in your shoe. It's the thing that is going to drive your evolution. And the way that it drives your evolution is because it's an annoyance all the time. And so you turn towards it and you learn how to work with it and how to deal with it. And in that way, we grow and we develop. Then we go across the veil, meaning we're going into the unconscious now, and we've got our radiance, which is about your inner light. This deep inner light has a lot to do with your physicality, with your aura, with your life force. And then lastly, we've got your purpose, which is yeah, thank you. Francesca just said there's a Gene Keys proper call that's at 1 o'clock. If anybody's got a boogie for that call, go. No worries on my end. Thank you for being here for an hour, Francesca. It has to do with Star Pearl. So if you're not in the Star Pearl, you can't be there. But if you are, and then lastly, Sonia, your purpose is this quality of being. It's a way that you move through the world. It's like the way that you are as you are doing things is a way to think about it. And each sphere has a different zone of your life that it represents. My videos there's a lot there. If you go back to them, you'll be able to kind of parse through what it all means and the places that it comes from.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Jan.
Yeah, so now I'll bring us back to where we were before this wonderful story that developed here. I made a note. I wanted to get back to what Ryan said, what Ryan shared about that serving the whole or serving people, and what you said about money as well. Because what hit me was that a thought I've had for a long time. If I would win the lottery tomorrow and really would win all the money in the world or a massive chunk of it, right, would I still be doing this? And then I would still be doing coaching. I'd still enjoy having conversations. I would still enjoy creating the stuff like the one behind me, being part of these types of communities. So even when the money is tighter, right, as you were just talking about, I'm doing this, right? Because this is who I am. And I think what is interesting, what really you were talking about, what happened to you last year and how you found that stability, right? As in, hey, it may not be here right now, but I know this is the right thing for me to do. What I found interesting, and this is what I wanted to share, and you just walked us through the activation sequence, basically, right? And you know, it's part of what I'm playing with all the time when I think about what we're here to do. But what's interesting is what you said is this first is going inside, right? So you start with your life's work, which in my case is the 51, which is about agitation, initiative, and awakening. So this is what I had to get used to. Like I'm agitated. I used to be agitated for quite a couple of things. Hey, what can I do about it? Let me take some initiative. And here's the awakening. Wonderful. That starts to work, right? That's interesting. Then if I go through the pathway of challenge into my evolution, that is all about unease, intuition, and clarity. So there was really about sensing that unease and getting connected to my intuition for clarity, but mine first, all right? And then when you go through to the breakthrough, basically to radiance, this whole idea about psychosis, inspiration, and sanctity, right? Being in my brain all the time, in my head all the time, and then you're like, it's the questions and the thoughts and everything is flying around, and it's not inspiring. You just go berserk if you're not careful, the psychosis part, unless you find that gift in there and start figuring out what really drives you. And then through that core stability, and I think that's the key thing that you just said, finding that purpose, which in my case goes from the 62, goes from intellect to precision, a word I struggled with for a long time, as you know, from some of our calls, and then into impeccability. But when I realized, for me, it is all about taking ancient wisdoms, taking things that are complex, like the gene keys, like human design, like the courage to teach, soul, role, and whole, like Ikigai, which is all around it, and bring all of that stuff together. Now, right, through or from that core stability, I start to get into my radiance, as in the inspiration part, which is really true for me. I'll go through those breakthroughs and trust my intuition, and now I bring it out into the world in my life's work, which is really about the initiative and awakening. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the fun part. If you really play with that, it took me a while to really see that up and down thing going on there. I mean, I think yesterday I was listening to something from Ra as well, when he was talking about this internalization and externalization. And I think that's what you just talked about, but it's the internal part first. You have to find, or you have to is a big word. It's useful if you connect to that purpose and basically say, now I have my course. This is what I'm all about. Right. And then you work your way back outside. I had a call earlier today with somebody, and she was into Gene Keys and human design, and she was thinking about her own coaching program to develop it. And she's like, yeah, but I have an open head and an open ajna, so I'll never be able to conceptualize it. And I shared with her what I have behind me. She said, well, maybe you can make one of those for me. So you can talk about that. I mean, right? I mean, hey, tell me what you're all about and let's figure out what that thing would look like.
Yeah.
But I think that's what you were just talking about, that core stability, going back to what Ryan said as well. If you do what you feel you're here to do, then the rest will follow.
Yeah. 100%. And it takes massive courage. Do not get it twisted. It's not like this is an easy road. It is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I've done a lot of hard shit. It is, the hardest part for me is that you're walking counter to 95% of other people in the world. And so it's constant that I'm getting like you're crazy, what are you doing? It's nonstop. And to have enough faith and trust in myself to know that it's right, like that is so hard. I was just talking to Courtney, my girlfriend, some of you might know her on the channel. Like we were just talking about this very thing of like, you know, I have these little voices in the back of my brain of like, do I need to go back to talking solely about the gene keys? Because that's what really was like the catalyst for all of this. But there's a deeper part of me that knows that I'm not just about the gene keys, right? Like that's Richard's thing. It's not my thing. And so it's hard to discern because maybe there's, you know, I always talk about the next step is always clear. And so maybe this is a stepping stone through, but how do you know that? You don't know without doing. And then I'll just take it back to share one other thing, because this is directly in line with what Jan was just talking about. Like, I think I just changed all my bios everywhere. So, like, if you go to my YouTube, if you go to my Instagram, as I'm kind of poking around with things, and what I changed it to was know thyself, do what you believe in, live full out. And it starts with know thyself for a very specific reason. Without that, we're lost. We're a lost soul. Jan, did you have anything else you wanted to add before we go up to Mac?
Um, no, I don't think so. I'm good.
Okay.
No, yeah, yeah, one thing. Sorry. Yes, I did have something in my mind. It slipped me because it's getting warm here, but now I got it back. That's why I love what you just said about this searching and everything. That's why I love doing gene keys and human design at the same time. I know there's a lot of people out there who say choose one. I still see them as complementary. I see gene keys as the pathways and the whole deconditioning part in it. I see human design as the whole energy management and decision making process around it. So I think they're very complementary, and that's how we could use them. And I think that's going back to what you said. If you're clear about your type, right? If you're clear about your profile, that shows so much. I mean, when I was clear about being a 5-1, it was so clear to me why I love jumping on these calls and learning all of this stuff and reading a book and reading it again and reading it again and reading it again and the pulse every weekend. I mean, I'm in the second or the third round of the Gene Keys books right now because I just, every time I read it and contemplate it, there's another word that pops in front of me because of where I am in life. And the other thing is what I started to learn, and this is about the wording as well, like, yeah, but what does that mean? I mean, this whole heretic, the 5, right? This kicking everything and stuff like that. What am I kicking? Right? And I used to have this thing about politics. I used to have this thing about organized religion. I used to have this thing about do I know what, that I felt like I needed to be kicking. But I think what I really need to be a heretic about is our old conditioning. Right? That old conditioning is something we can change. That's something that I can change for me. And if I can change that for me and show others, share with others how they, by using, as an example, the Gene Keys and human design, can change it for them, I think that's the biggest thing. That's the real awakening, I think, in my life's work. So I don't have to kick. I don't have to shout. I don't have to say whoever is right or wrong, or do I know what? I just have to show, hey, this is working for me. And if you feel that it might be working for you, check out that whole deconditioning pathway. Go through the activation sequence as an example and do it again and do it vice versa, as we just talked about, and see what shows up. But the combination is really making a difference.
Yeah. Beautiful.
I'll leave it there.
Beautiful. And just for the other side of the coin, yeah, well, just the other side of the coin, I went the other route, which I think most of you guys know of, like, I went the Gene Keys road all in 100%. And for better or for worse, it was something that Richard said very early on in the journey, which was beware of shallow drafts of wisdom. They're intoxicating, meaning that, like, dipping your little fingers in lots of different systems, but never getting to depth with any of them is a very dangerous thing to do. And that's not what Jan is talking about, right? He's taking both of them to depth. That's a totally different thing. And I think really works for a lot of people. Jan is much more mental body than I am. I'm much more intuitive, I would say. Not in, well, yeah. And because of that, like, for me to be thinking about my design would just pull me up into a way of being in the world that doesn't totally align with the way that I move, I think. I could be wrong because I've never looked at human design, but that's okay. um, Dang, I had one other thing that I wanted to say. I forgot what it is. We were talking about Jan's journey, Gene Keys, human design. Oh, well, Mac, what you got, my love?
Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to mention about stability.
Please.
It's part of my sphere that I need to look at, that, which is quite ironic, the Temple of Trust. And I feel that trust has been big in my life and it still needs to be big. And I keep being stretched, stretched to, yeah. But as you know, and some of you know, that my health fluctuates. I never really know how my health's going to be. So my ability to earn money is questionable. Finances are questionable. And yet I feel and I know that I'm more stable than I've ever been in my life. And I'm doing stuff for free. Am I mad? I've been doing stuff for free. But I want to. But also I'm looking to be paid at some point. But I am. I'm doing stuff for free, and I keep wanting to do free stuff for free, and I just think, am I mad? But the other thing about the path is not necessarily straight. Mine certainly hasn't been. But if I look back on my life, every single thing has brought me to who I am now and my understanding of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I take Richard's point about not fully understanding a system. And I would never say that I fully understand a system because, like, for example, since I was given a pencil, I've been an artist throughout my life, but I still feel like a beginner. And I realize that there's tons I don't know. Tons that other people would say I should know, but I don't. But I trust. I trust, and I deviate in and out of things as I go. And sometimes I follow a path that's written for me, like say in the Venus sequence. And other times I just go where my curiosity leads. And so I do a very, very meandering path. And my path is not clear. But I'm just trusting that the next step will be shown. And this is where I'm going. And it is scary sometimes.
Yes, it is.
And it's kind of trusting that it will be there. And when I look in retrospect, then I can see all the links, then I feel more confident. And I suppose the fear has really, one of the things that happened about the about the star pearl. And I was looking between vocation and stability. And it was about faith. That's the line, the pathway is faith.
Mm-hmm.
And although I have faith when I'm connecting with a client and with spirit, God, whatever you want to talk about when I'm doing that, that's no problem. But what I wasn't putting faith in was my body's ability to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And also my faith in that spirit were going to be there to help me on my way.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in a healing session. I go to a psychic and mediumship development circle, and afterwards they've started healing. And I went there, and the sort of guide says to all of us, you all have been chosen. And the reason why this had such an impact, because I felt I was unworthy, undeserving, didn't know enough, wasn't good enough. All of those things are negative that might hold me back. Saying I was worthy, along with others, it just touched my heart. And when we did the little meditation, I just cried because my spirit team were saying, of course, we're here for you. And it really, really shifted. It really, really helped me to shift. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple things there that are worth double clicking on, I think. And the first, do you remember what the lower frequency keynote of the pathway that you talked about is? So for those that are unaware, this is connecting a new sphere called stability to your vocation within the star pearl. So this is a new pathway. Do you remember what the lower frequency keynote is?
I think it's anxiety.
It is correct. So I bring that up because when we're thinking about faith, the opposite of faith is anxiety. That's important to understand and to really let in. Anytime anxiousness is kicking up inside of you, there's a lack of faith that is present. The other thing that's important here is just the knowing that it's going to work out. The knowing that you have the capacity to get it to work out. So there's a man who I studied for a while and continue to go back. He has a book that I'm most of the way through called The Law of Light. He actually has a bunch of books, but the one I'm reading is The Law of Light. His name is Lars Mule. He also has a YouTube channel. And Lars studied with a healer, like real deal healer. Ability to connect to the Akashic record more than likely. And this man, his phone would ring pretty much starting at 8 a.m. every day of people reaching out to him to ask him for a healing. And when Lars first went to go and study with him, there was a woman, I believe, who called and said that she was dying of cancer and asked if he could heal her. And without skipping a beat and with full conviction, he said, yes, absolutely. Of course I can heal you. And when Lars later asked him about that, he was like, how could you possibly, with conviction, say that you could heal this person? Like, she's got cancer. Did Jesus ever say, I'm not so sure if I can heal you? Of course not. Because he's not the one who is doing the healing. It's this spirit that is in all of us, but it can only work with full conviction and full faith. That's the trick. And that's hard. It's easy to mentally want full conviction and full faith, but to actually do the work to allow your body to have full conviction and full faith is a totally different thing. And that's the reason I have Courtney here. I think a lot of people are like, why the fuck is Courtney on the channel? Like, what is happening here? What use is she? And I know that's not the case for everyone, but I think that a lot of people are missing the link in understanding that your body is a part of this and it holds things. To put it in like more of an Eastern term, I'm rereading Mickey Singer's book, who he wrote Untethered Soul, but then he wrote a follow-up to Untethered Soul, and I forget what the name of the follow-up is, but that's the one that I'm reading. And he's doing a lot of talking about sanskaras, which is a Sanskrit word, and it's basically like an energy signature that like blocks the flow of energy through your body. So the scar is in Sanskara, and that's how you can remember what they are. There's these kind of energetic scars that we've taken on throughout our lives. And each of those energetic scars prevents energy from really and truly flowing through us as it could. And because it cannot move in certain areas of our body, it becomes limited in its capacity. And so those sanskaras are living, I believe, in our fascial system. This is not at all confirmed. This is just me and my intuition and knowing the body. But I believe that those sanskaras are stirred in this tissue called fascia, which is this connective tissue that runs throughout our entire body. It's everywhere. There's superficial fascia, which is like underneath the skin. There's fascia that connects all your organs. Like what we're finding is that in reality, The fascia is what gives our body its structure, not the bones. Like we were taught for a long time that it's the skeleton. But in reality, the bones, most of them aren't actually on top of one another. They're all wrapped in this fascia that is keeping it in place. And I'm convinced that it's got something to do with the spiritual realms. And anyway, I'll save that for another time because I don't know. It's just something that's alive in me that I know is true in some way, shape, or form. Okay. So back to the
Jay, can
faith,
I say real quick? I just
please. Yeah.
confirm what you're sharing there in my own experience and things that I've studied and the way that I work. I work in and with that system on the energy dimensional level. It absolutely has lots of things connected to what you're sharing. So your intuition's spot on.
Yeah. Well, and I've
I want
got
to weigh in
physical.
on that too, that I had my intuition is exactly what you just said. And I'm trying to get the block therapy course, and I've been doing some fascia work, and everything you said, I was agree with. I got very excited to hear somebody else say it besides just my own self.
Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you.
There's something there. The first person that figures it out is going to help a lot of people. I know that. Like, it's wild. It's a wild system of the body. It's got a mind of its own, which is interesting.
Mhm.
So the point of that whole story around faith is like, again, back to the direct experience of God and back to knowing. Like you've got to get to a place where you know. And we're human. There's going to be times where we forget, and that's a part of our journey is to constantly remember and to constantly remind. Like that's what I see my work as. It's like this system is a living wisdom. It's not a knowledge system. There's nothing for me to teach you. And that's the reason, Mac, that I think, and Jan actually, like Jan said, when he goes back, he always notices a different word. And Mac was talking about like going through various ways and following her intuition. And I think that because it is a living wisdom, it's constantly changing. Like it's even though the words aren't shifting on the page, what is coming through to us is constantly shifting and constantly changing because it's alive and it's communicating with us. And so my work is to try and allow that communication to happen, to be a mirror to show you that you can move through the world in a different way and that you're going to be safe. And it would be a whole lot easier if I could come to you and say, I made $1 million this year because of it. And I can't do that yet, but I'll be able to.
It's funny when you say that living wisdom, by the way, because when you would see my books, first time around when I read them, it was all yellow markers. I mean, and half of the book is yellow markers. And now when I go through the second time, I really have a pen in my hands, right? And I start to underline certain words, but now all of a sudden I'm underlining some of the words that didn't have the yellow markings yet. So it's funny.
Yes.
You just like, you're reading the same thing like, dang, why didn't I see that last time? And now it's showing up. So that's great. I mean, that's the fun part of it.
Agree. I do. I have the exact same experience. Like I've been through, I cannot tell you how many times I've listened to my life's work, Gene Key, both the audio and read the book. And just like 3 days ago, I understood the 30-second Gene Key in a completely different way than I have understood it before. Like I'm not talking like a little shift in what I thought it was. It was like, holy fuck, I was wrong. Like I was completely off. Or maybe I was right for then, and now I need this new thing to move forward. Like it's wild. It's absolutely insane. There was one other thing. Oh, from the chat. Sarah commented, the shadow loves to study itself. That is so important because if you're not careful, you will get stuck in this trauma shadow loop forever because it's a way to keep your mind busy and avoid doing the much deeper, harder work of contacting your soul. So we got to get out of the shadow analysis a little bit. Remember what Richard says, 90% of your time in the gift and the city 10% of your time in the shadow. Now, it doesn't always need to be that way, right? There are periods of our life where we spend 100% of our time or 99% of our time on the shadow. So I'm not saying that we never go through stretches or phases like that, but then we might fast forward a month and we spend 99% of our time in the city, and it balances out in that way. William.
Yeah. Hey, thanks. So I just wanted to kind of comment on the thread with Mac and everything, talking about the fact actually with the fashion and everything. And so something I came across with the gene keys that I feel is relevant is when we look at contemplation and we look at the Venus sequence, which quick note, I'm not an expert in Venus sequence, it's just something I'm connecting. Is it works from mental, emotional to the physical is kind of like how the contemplation everything works backwards. But one thing I noticed in the G Keens is that there's the circle of matter, I think it's called, and that's exactly, there's four of them, but the first three is very much mental, emotional, and physical.
Mm-hmm.
And the physical aspect, I think, is the key point because the mental and emotional, I think, are easier points to release. You know, in the mental space and the emotional, they're processes we can work through, but it's when we get to the physical, it's hard to release. And that's because, you know, science shows us that the body reports. And so the physical aspect of that is gene key 46, I believe, which is seriousness and delight.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what our body is recording and through fascia and through the vagus nerve and everything is the over seriousness that we carry. And I think what you offer in your program, or maybe it's the other person, is the somatic releases, I think is the key to that. So that way we can start to experience delight. And so, so I think that's the point our bodies are trying to reach is a feeling of delight, but it's like more than just a feeling.
Yes.
It's just a point we operate.
Totally, dude. So what that really, thank you for saying that because it's a perfect way to frame this. What we were talking about earlier with the direct experience of God, what needs to happen within your body is this direct experience of contacting a stuck energy that is in your body. That's the only way I can describe it. It's this direct connection to it. And it's a very intense thing. And when it releases, there's typically a lot of emotion that releases with it. And then you've just freed up a pathway for some energy to travel. And William, you nailed it. That's it. Like that's what Courtney does is the somatic experiencing work, the work of creating enough safety within the body that you can contact these patterns and from the seat of your higher self, talk to that wounded part of yourself and help it to know that you're not trying to kick it out. You're not trying to shove it down. You're not trying to get rid of it. You're here to love it. A lot of the time, like a lot. So if you've ever done any EMDR work, for example, which is eye movement, it's a type of therapy basically where you move your eyes or you can tap your legs to the left and to the right. But I've done that for a couple of years in the past. I no longer do it, but throughout that process, you identify different parts of self and you kind of reprocess different parts of self, different experiences that you had. And I cannot tell you, one of the questions that my therapist had me ask is when it was tied to like a younger part of myself, you ask the question, do you know that you are me and that it is the year 2025?
Oh, wow.
And I cannot tell you how many times those parts have said, no, get away from me. And it is, I don't know what year it is, but it's certainly not that, right? Like it's so clear that there are these parts of us that are not unified and they are wreaking havoc inside of you until you're willing to deal with them. And when I say deal with them, I mean love them, accept them.
That's really good. Yeah. Well, and that's kind of something I was working with through AI. I know last session you talked about, be careful with that. But it's about not shaming the parts of yourself, because I think we get stuck in, oh, I should do this or I have to do that, and when we focus on it, there's a sense of shame or guilt or some sort of negative context that come with it, rather than just honoring a position that we're in. It's like, okay, this is just where I'm at right now. It's serving me. How, instead of shaming the alignment, how can I go into a deeper, different alignment that supports it? And one point, sorry, just to go back, you're talking about allowing God into the body. Is, even in the Bible it says delight in the Lord, and I wonder if like it was talking about that right there, going back to the Gene Key 46, having delight in the body for the Lord, not just the mental, emotional, but like really feel that delight. And so I find that interesting. I've been wanting to say that for a long time, and to someone or to a group that would understand it. So I appreciate the space. So that's all I got.
Totally, dude. Thank you for sharing, William. Appreciate you, brother. Um, Ryan, just to speak to your comment on fibromyalgia, nervous system, I'm not diagnosed fibromyalgia, but I almost guarantee if I went to a doctor and talked about it, I would be. And so this is definitely something that's worth you poking around on, because I think it will help. It's helped me. Let me just say that. It's helped me immensely. The pain's not gone, but it's 80% reduced over the period of time. So a specific method that I have found, and maybe Christine, you can speak to this, being in the field, but a system that I have found is called the MELT method, MELT method. And it's a specific foam roller that's like really soft and a little bit smaller in diameter. And there are kind of specific tools, practices. It's very different than just normal, the official term for like rolling is self myofascial release, right? It's very different from that, because it's not like with self myofascial release, it's myofascia, meaning the fascia between the skin and the muscle, right? It has to do with the muscle. Whereas what is addressed in melt is like the entire fascial system versus just the superficial fascia, which is in the top layer. So give that a poke. Unfortunately, you do need to buy the roller. Like I tried to ghetto rig one and it didn't work so well. So Christine, did you have anything you wanted to add there?
Yeah, I love that. Yes, in the work that I do with fascia, and I know others who work with hands-on tangible. So addressing the physical is really important because we have a physical body on purpose. And a lot of us who are in the spiritual paths, whatever that might be, tend to forget that for some time. And then we get back to realizing it's here to be with us. So addressing physical is super important, but also every other aspect of you, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, your energetics, your dimensional bodies. We have a variety of bodies that we talk about in the gene keys. There's all these layers and things in between. And this fascia system is not just in the physical body. There is an energetic and dimensional component. It is all around you. It's part of your aura, if you want to consider it that way. And it's part of the connective tissue that is unity, that is all that we are and why we are never separate. So when you have that super zoomed out thing, you need to start where you are, which is right here in this physical body, in this space and time, linear time being while we're human, and go from there. But make sure you are addressing those other pieces, because the energetic scar tissue or scarring, like you were talking about, it has all those layers and it goes into all those aspects. So mental, emotional, energetic, spiritual, dimensional, plus the physical. So holistic approach is highly recommended to resolve.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said it better. And what you just said really just, I had a light bulb go off, which is like, you said the connective tissue of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like, holy shit, that's our
Beyond.
connective tissue. So like, whoa.
Yeah, it's fun to
There's,
play around in there.
yeah,
Make sure you're grounded.
there's something there for sure. We're
Yeah.
gonna that's my nighttime contemplation time. I can tell you that much. Thank you. Sarah, to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to first off say that I love Courtney on the channel. I
Thank you.
listened to a video she was doing about somatics, and I was just kind of like agog at how deep she went with it. I want to listen to it again. Because I feel like I have 46.6 and I just feel like I'm completely disconnected from my body, and I always have been. And I've been working with ChatGPT a lot, and I've done a lot of like mind training. And what's coming through is that I really need to focus on like somatics. And my not, I think it's not self theme is anger. And I'm like, I'm not angry. I don't have any anger. And then all this anger is starting to come up, which is hilarious. So I've been like eating sweets for England.
Uh, so your that's very line two. Have you made that connection yet? The anger situation?
Uh, line 2 for
Just at large. So the line energies, although we give them different keynotes depending on what sphere they are, it's really the same energy that's there all the time. Like it's a line two is a line two is a line two. We just frame it in a slightly different way. And the line two is very passionate, right? Very emotional, very and when I say emotional, I guess passionate is a better word. And so because of that, there's can be a lot of underlying anger. There's a lot of because of the level of energy that you bring, but also what comes with the second line is this denial. And so I think what you are feeling into or experiencing, and here's what the breakthrough was for me because I'm a second line, I'm a 6-2, right? So I have those second lines unconscious. I was the same way. I was like, I'm not an angry person. Like I'm constantly in a good mood. That's not true. Take it back. But I'm not an angry person. And what I had to substitute was the word annoyed with anger because I used to get annoyed all the time. And if you follow annoyance deep in, that's anger. Right? There is somebody is acting differently than you want them to act, and it upset you.
yeah. I don't think I have any line 2 though in my chart.
Interesting. Cool.
Just throw a spanner in the works.
And like we said, and do you have your star pearl? Do you know your star pearl?
No, I don't know that one. I don't
Okay, so
think.
maybe there's a 2 in there,
Maybe.
even if not, e as I always say, we have all 64 gene keys in us and we have all 6 lines in us. So that
Yeah.
energy is present. It just might not be what leads for you.
Yeah. As far as I know, I don't have any 2 or 5.
Interesting.
I've got 1s, 3s, 4s, and 2 6s. So.
Cool. Well, thank you, my dear. Is there anything else you wanted to share?
Just one thing. Somebody had said to me that a while ago that basically the unprocessed emotion is what blocks the outer experience that we want, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, and totally true. It's because that is what causes us to snap into patterns and take us out of presence, and then it's not us. And of course, we can't get what we want. Sounds good, Christine. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you. And then just to speak to Courtney's depth, like she's an actual neuroscientist. So she can take it deeper than most people can take it because she's got her PhD in it, which is there's a lot of people out there that are preaching, the nervous system repair people that have taken a weekend seminar, and she's certainly not that. Jan, what you got?
Well, you got something going here with that line 2 and that annoyance slash anger.
Yes.
So I just looked at my profile. I'm like, okay, interesting. IQ 25.2, EQ 24.2, Pearl 29.2, and my creativity 46. And we were just talking about that one, 0.2. Can you please help me with those points? What shows up for you when you hear all of those twos, specifically in the IQ, EQ, Pearl, and creativity?
So IQ, EQ is really what jumps out at me because those are so outwardly facing, right? Like those are analogous to your life's work and your evolution in the activation sequence. And so they're very conscious and very much within our conscious control. And so that being the case, it, I'm just going to lay it out there. What it
Yeah,
brings
just,
up for me
I
is,
mean, go, bring it on, bring it on.
yeah, well, just you've got a tough path because there are things that you are just going to be blind to because of that second line energy, both in your thinking and in your feeling body. And so I think what's really, really important for you, and you do it already, is constant mirrors, constantly being around people in conversation so that you can be reflected back these things that you might be blind to as you are engaging in the world with your mental body and your astral body. The other thing that I think it brings up for me, and this is more just knowing you as a person, and and not that I know you, but you've been, it's been a while that you've been coming to these, and you and I have talked a couple of times, is like I feel like you could allow that line two energy through more. Like the line two is very unreserved, very like n- the opposite of calculating, free, like very edgy, passionate again. And I sense that your five, your practicality tends to mush that down a little bit.
That's interesting. Yeah. Interesting. Would also be interesting to figure out what that then does to the pearl and the creativity from that match. But
Yeah.
I'll play with that. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're
Oh,
welcome, brother.
look at
You're
Layla,
welcome.
like she's like, yeah, there's something.
Yeah, Lily, what you got? What you got?
I wanted to say something else, but I totally agree with Jay's assessment about you. Well,
Yeah, take it.
Jay is a great mirror, and I want to circle back to this whole meeting and the beginning of what you want this to be in the future, because I do think it's really important. And as soon as you introduced the session and said you're not really sure where you want to go with it, my first question was, well, do you want to continue? Is this something you still want to do? And just to reflect on what the world needs at the moment. And I was thinking about it all week. And I think, when we met in London, I said to you that you are a mirror. And I do think, in fact, every person is each other's mirrors. And I think at this time in our lives, we are all trying to learn about ourselves. And we do that through speaking to other people and see what others reflect back to us. And every time you speak to a new person and they share anything, you probably, just like when you reread the Gene Keys, you'll learn something new and take a new perspective in that will bring light to another person or another thing about your personality that was maybe not obvious before. So to circle back, I think this is what we like. Like you are a really amazing mirror and initiate people through just conversations. So if you were to ask me what I think this call needs to be and whether you want to continue with it, certainly a type of mirror exercise that we have here that has been really helpful. So that's just what I wanted to share today.
Yeah, thank you, Lily. That's really helpful for me. Um, and I enjoy doing these. They're not going anywhere. I have every intention of continuing to come here and talk with you guys. It's something that brings me joy. It feels like a form of service for me, like one of the highest forms of service that I can offer. I think this is like, for whatever reason, I can talk about stuff for better or for worse. Um, And I also enjoy like the longer ongoing relationships that develop here, like with you, Lily, and Jan, and like the people that have been here, Mac, that have been here for like a year at this point. Like it's been a long time that we've been doing these calls together, and it's cool to see the shifts and the change that everyone goes through. I
Jay,
think,
can I pipe in here?
please.
Right? um, yeah, I want to second that comment, the comments about mirroring, because that's probably the biggest takeaway for me on these calls. Yeah, the biggest takeaway, and it's mirroring in both ways. It's mirroring in what might be triggered in me, and it's mirroring, confirming mirroring. And so like, when you were talking about know thyself, to me, and I really like to simplify things, reduce things down big time, and simplify it, because I'm extremely good at complicating things.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
And I'm finally recognizing that for what it is. Big fat distraction. And but the knowing thyself is that's probably to me anyway, to my understanding, is the most fundamental takeaway for quite frankly, for every single human being on the earth, is knowing thyself. And coupled with that is loving myself. How well do I love myself? Can I fully embody and embrace all those aspects, every single one that at one point I pushed away from myself? Have I, so it's coming back to knowing myself. And
I just,
then,
I just want to chime in before you move on from that.
yeah,
The
yeah,
full quote here, just so that everyone is aware. First of all, this is a Socrates quote. So,
yeah,
like, this has been around for a very, very long time, and it
yeah,
comes from very wise people. But the quote is, to know thyself is the beginning of wisdom.
yes,
And so I
exactly.
share that, not necessarily for you, Carmen Ray, but for everyone, to like go back to the bio that I shared with you. Like, know thyself is first, but there's other steps. Unfortunately, a lot of people try and skip the first step or end after they know themselves, and then they're on an island in Never Never Land, not plugged back in. We need both. Okay, go ahead, Carmen Ray. Sorry to cut you off.
Okay, well, thanks for adding a boatload more. So what I'm going to say to that, yeah, is you come full circle with that. Like, I mean, I came in, knowing that part of my journey was to help people to know themselves fully, and to come back to fully. I don't want to get into woo-woo. I don't like woo language, but to fully know who they are. I am.
Period.
I am, period.
Yeah.
When you understand that, there's absolutely nothing outside of you. And I had once again, a very significant breakthrough with that lately. And when I sat with it, I really felt it in a much, much deeper way than I ever have. So much so that I'm I'm not being derailed with it. I used to be derailed quite quickly. I'd have a breakthrough. Oh yeah, that felt good. And then the shadow stuff would just, you know. So anyway, what I again sitting with it, what I reduce that down to, I shouldn't say that sounds, I don't, the simplicity of it for me is that for my life, how I live my life is I am, period.
Yeah.
I allow, period. And I trust, period.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that encapsulates knowing myself and loving myself unconditionally.
Yeah.
They're one and the same.
I think if those three things are embodied,
Yeah.
there's no, I mean, that's the whole game. The game is up if those things
Yeah.
are fully embodied. So I agree with you wholeheartedly, Carmen Ray. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. And I think the last time I was on a call, I lost it on you a little bit. Because, well, yeah, okay, but here's the thing. It's because I thought I was sick of all the spiritual stuff. I don't want to hear from another bloody teacher. I don't want to hear another guru. I don't want to hear another sage seer, blah, 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 blah. I want to hear me. And after that, that's when this breakthrough really ushered its way in. But like I said, I've been through it before, but not like this.
Yeah.
This is a complete and utter shift.
Good.
And so, anyway, I'm just going, that's what I appreciate about this call is a mirroring.
Yeah.
Because I don't need somebody to heal me. I don't need somebody to tell me how to live my life. I don't need advice. I don't need fucking help. I am. I allow. I trust. Damn it.
Beautifully said. I think that that is the case for everyone, literally. And that's how
Yeah.
I try and approach my work is through that lens, big time. And I'm glad that you're back. And I'm glad that I could be an annoying thorn in your side sometimes because that's my job sometimes.
No, well, anyway, I'm saying I just by sitting in that and staying in that, I also what I want to say is by it's put me in the place of just listening to myself.
Yeah.
So if I'm going through a time like, okay, because I've been through it many times, what's next for me? What I'm, at this point in my life, what's it all about? What's this shift, this change that's going on? When I can stay with, I am, I allow, I trust, takes me right out of analyzing, complicating, trying to figure it out, blah, 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 blah. And just staying with myself, being still, and, letting something come through in its own time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. Nailed it. All right, my dear. I'm gonna go over to Sarah because she has hands up and we're getting close to the end of time. Is there any
Yeah.
final period you want to put on that? Or do you feel complete?
I'm complete.
Okay. Sarah, over to you, my dear.
It was just a very quick idea that popped into my head about mirroring. So I'm in another community, and what they do is they buddy people up. So you have two people, and then you take turns to express to each other without judgment or giving feedback. And I just wondered if anybody else would be interested in that, or if you think that's an okay idea, Jay.
Yeah, beautifully. So one of the things I'm rolling around in my brain is starting up a community like on school, like off YouTube, so that we all have a place to go and hang out. And I think if that sounds like something that would work better if once that is rolling, if I decide to get that rolling, no promises, because I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do. But heard, yes, I'm interested. I've done things similar in the past and it is super impactful. So totally. Just to speak back to what Lily said a bit ago about the call, and really this is a learning for myself that I've had to figure out, and I'm sharing it in hopes that it helps some of you guys, is like, and I've talked about this in the past, it's been a little while, but a big part of like the reason that there's a disconnect in some places in my life is because I oftentimes feel like I need to do more, meaning like I'm not enough by just showing up as me. And what that does is it causes this really heavy burden because you're basically having to act every time you go somewhere. And it's that acting that causes these rifts inside of our being. And there's a part of us that knows that we're not being true to ourselves when we do that. And so then we get the Jay that is at work, and then there's the Jay that's a dad, and then there's the Jay that's hanging out with his homies, and those are all slightly different versions. It's not anymore, but it used to be. And that is exhausting. And I think as you go out in service into the world, one of the big keys is to figure out, like, here's my opinion, throw work-life balance out the fucking window, because there is no difference between you at work and between you in life. Like, they are one and the same. And if there is a disconnect there, I'd argue it's because there is a part of you that, like, the work side or the personal side isn't right. And I don't mean go fucking work your ass off all the time either. Don't do that. We need to slow down. We need to pause. We need to take time. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is do it in an aligned way. Any last questions before we wrap up for today?
Maybe just a remark, because what you just said aligns to what we talked about before with the life's work going into the purpose first and then the other way around, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if that's aligned, what you just say, I mean, and I can only speak for myself, and everybody else needs to draw their conclusion. I don't experience you as acting when you are here,
Yeah.
right? This is
Yeah.
the real you.
Yeah.
And I think that's also what was said just before, and that's why we are here.
Yeah.
So there is no reason to act in this room, I guess, for anybody. We're all on a journey. We're figuring out this whole thing together. We're in different stages of development, knowledge, ideas, whatever you want to call it, right? And that's the fun of all of this.
Yeah.
And I think that what is interesting is what you, and I just want to share that. What is interesting about what you said about showing up differently or acting, that would be a perfect moment when that shows up for anybody, by the way, in the room, not just you, but you were just sharing it, is to actually have a conversation with Courtney about that somatic imprint idea.
Yeah.
Because the moment you start to feel that you need to be acting in a certain environment where you can't be you, where you can't be the real Jay, then something is showing up that says, I'm not safe here.
Yes.
And that thing, that's the fun part, what we were talking about before, what Christine was talking about before as well. Wherever that thing sits in our body, or wherever it sits, I mean, that's not important actually. You can get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I just had a conversation with one of my coaching clients earlier today in the corporate world, and she had some issues, and I shared with her the document I shared in this group a while ago as well, based on expressive writing, that Pennebaker thing, that the protocol that I called it.
Yep.
And she literally used it for a business situation. She went through the whole thing and she created clarity. So what you were just talking about, I mean, if you get into that point where you feel like I need to be acting here, take a step back and say, hey, what's going on here? What do I think? What is happening in my body right now? And then if you allow time for that, right? I loved Carmen Ray, what you said about the I am, I allow, I trust, right? If you allow time for that, then you allow whatever is now somewhere stored to come to the surface and be released. And the big thing for me is that I shared a little post on it on LinkedIn earlier today. There was one little sentence that somebody shared, right? And how that sentence literally stuck with them for their life up until today, basically. And I'm convinced we have hundreds, if not thousands, of those sentences inside that block us.
Agree.
And the moment you feel like you need to be acting, there's a darn sentence behind it where you feel like, damn, what situation did this happen? And it may not be one, it may be two, it may be 100. Figure it out and find that release, that expression.
Yep. 100%. And interestingly, in my case, where it's reproducible, I can make it happen. Like where it shows up is where I get in front of that camera that's right behind me. But for a YouTube video, like there's something in me that has to do with wanting to be successful, and like the algorithm thing, and the like there's something in me that makes it so that I don't express 100% me. And it's getting closer and closer as we're doing them and as we're marching. But like, that's a big piece of my work right now, is like, how can I show up on the camera as just me without needing all the extra bells and whistles, you know?
If you're interested.
Say again.
Hey, Jake, can I just offer you the group a quick resource? And then
Sure.
So if you guys Google Gene Keys charts, somewhere along the way, there's going to be an extended chart. So it gives the list of the gene keys, the gift, city, and the shadow, and then it shows the reaction and responsive. But there's two more lists that it gives that really kind of blew my mind, and that was the dilemma and the victim mindset.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen it in the big book, but maybe it's just the way I'm reading it. But what was interesting in what you said about like the success and everything is the 32 gene key was very much the victim mindset of your way of success. It didn't talk about failure. It was so wrapped around success. And I know because I have 32 as well. And so I've been kind of honing in on that. But for the collective, you know, that's an interesting resource.
Totally, dude.
So,
perfect.
yeah,
Thank you
thanks.
for sharing that. So the dilemmas are in all the audios. So when you listen to Richard doing his audio contemplation on a gene key, that's where he shares the dilemmas. And then, yeah, some people have compiled them and you can get them as a list. But the dilemma is one of the things that opens gene keys for me more than anything else.
Yeah.
It makes a really, really big difference. Like the dilemma of 32 that we've been talking about is panic. And it's this underlying sense that the world is going to fall apart at any given moment. And so we're panicking, right? We're moving around. And what he says in that audio, which I literally listened to this morning for the 900th time, like it's like a song. I'm speaking the words as Richard is speaking the words. Like it's so crazy how deep in it is sometimes. But what he says is like, we often think of panic as like this frenetic rushing quality. And you can check me if you don't believe me. Those are literally the words he uses. Frenetic and rushing are the quality that he describes as panic, but it's an inner panic that is this deep sense that like I said, things are going to fall apart. And when he goes on to say, if you're really honest with yourself, look at your day yesterday and think about how often you are moving through the world with this sense of panic. This sense of like just trying to get to the next thing. Okay, guys, we're at 5 past. Mac, yeah, what you got, my love?
The audios are actually Richard reciting from the 64 ways, and that contains the dilemmas.
Yes, thank you. Actually, it was the other way around, Mac. He spoke them first and then
Oh,
they
did
put it
he?
into a book. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Um, as always, guys, thank you for being here. I hope you had something that you can take away from this. I felt like it was a good one today. I felt really good. Um, if you want to work with me, I'm doing that. I've flipped back into like being very laissez-faire about this whole thing because for a while there I went back to like old business Jay and got like, and I think that's a big part of what fucked up the energy of what was happening here. So I'm back to just like being the guy that moves very different than most other businesses would move, in that like I'm not going to hound you, I'm not going to chase you down, but I want you to know that I'm here for you, and if it resonates with you, I'd love to have a conversation and talk about what it might look like.